You should consider collecting these games now. The Star Wars Trilogy on the Super Nintendo. Hey Nintendo fans and collectors, Lithium here from my channel Nintendo Collecting, bringing you another entry into the Collect This Now series, where I like to talk about video games that I think you should get your hands on sooner rather than later, because I predict the value of these games is only going to go up over time, and these are definitely worthwhile having in your collection because they're a lot of fun and they're challenging. Here are my top 3 main reasons why you should collect this trilogy now. Reason number 1, the popularity of the Star Wars franchise is only increasing over time. If you're aware, and I'm sure you are, Episode 7 for Star Wars is coming out this Christmas. It's out sometime in mid-December, and I'm really getting excited for it. A lot of other people are too, and that means collectors are getting excited as well. A lot of collectors, including myself, might go back and try and collect anything from the Star Wars franchise that's worthwhile having in their collection that has some quality to it, which I'll get to in a second. So if any of the history of the past is to follow suit with the Star Wars franchise, I think these games are slowly going to start creeping up in price as people try and get their hands on them, which leads me to reason number 2. These games are actually really well made. They're made in part by LucasArts, JVC, and THQ. These games are really fun to play, but they're incredibly challenging and they're pretty unforgiving. Especially the first one. The first one actually doesn't have a password system, so you really have to get good at the game. However, there is, in the first game, an area where you can harvest 1-ups, so make sure you search that first if you really want to get through the game, because at parts it feels like it's unforgiving and it's very challenging. But the next 2 games do have a password system, and there is a way to actually use some cheat codes, which do make using the game a lot more fun. Essentially, if you don't know about these, in the first game you start with Luke, and you kind of follow loosely based on the movies and the plot throughout the franchise. So in the first one, you don't actually start with Luke with a lightsaber, you start him just with one of his guns, and then eventually you do get the lightsaber, and you get all of these different force powers, which really makes you feel cool. Other playable characters include Han Solo, you can also play as Chewbacca, and really I must say that the music in these games is outstanding. There's some Super Nintendo versions of some of the best Star Wars music of all time, and I really enjoy listening to it while I play through the games. There's also a variety of game style throughout these games. There is platforming, there is shooting, there's even parts where you're in some of the different vehicles within the series, and there's Mode 7 graphics harking back to the F-Zero game at the launch of the Super Nintendo, which is really cool. I must give shoutouts to some of the boss fights. I really liked fighting Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back. You can also fight the Rancor in the Return of the Jedi, and the Emperor Palpatine battle at the end is really cool as well in Return of the Jedi. There are some boss battles that feel like they're misplaced and they kind of had to make up some of the characters, but nothing really feels like it's hurting the series, and everything feels like it's a lot of fun in this. So I must warn you again, really hard but great games. 85, 78, and 83 on Metacritic, definitely worthwhile having. Reason number 3, I think right now, these games, the price is right if you search online. On eBay right now, each one of them roughly with a complete copy in the box with instructions usually costs roughly $25. For any complete Super Nintendo game, I think a lot of them are going up over time. I don't think that value is going to go down, like I said in point number 1, especially with Star Wars Episode 7 coming out. So spending about $25 for a complete in-box with the instructions game is definitely worthwhile having. If you want to collect these cartridge only, you can probably pay around $10 each. If you're really lucky, maybe $5 each, especially if you search or hunt locally. I think this is a tremendously good series. I think it's one of the best Star Wars trilogies for video games out there all time, and I really think they're worthwhile having in your collection. But what do you think? I would love to hear you sound off in the comments below your thoughts on these games if you've ever played them before. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to fill that like bucket. Follow me on all the social media links in the description below the video. And remember, as always, go collect them all and keep smiling while gaming.